Okay, so we're back again, and the usual reminder down below the video is the description of this video, and it's got the chapters listed out, and then it's got an index out to the big index for this channel. So it's got like 3 years of I compile the indexes every week, and then it puts it on that list. So you can go out and you can find that index, and then it's also got 3 years index of ROS Agriculture that I started doing one time. It's got that listed there. And I think it's got the link to our Slack channel, and it's got the link to our YouTube page where these videos are being stored. So you can go look at that, so the newer videos might have a little bit more stuff in the description, but just pull up. If you're watching this one, this one should have a fairly stable amount of stuff down there, but you can go look at that and dig through it and see if it makes sense. And as I used to tell people, you can go look at the description first and see what we talked about. So you may not even want to watch this video today, but it'll just tell you ahead of time what's in it. And then it's handy because you can go back to the big index and search for LED, or search for GPS, or search for a brand name like Novatel or uBlox or whatever. And that way that I I put all this together because I needed a way to find all this stuff. We're going to the trouble to record it and save it, and then I needed some way to, because otherwise, if you don't know what's out there, it doesn't do you any good. Because I'm not going to go back and watch them all. So, if I have the index, I'll say, oh, on this day, before we started here, we were talking about putting a flashing beacon on your vehicle, and I know that a couple of times during ROS Agriculture, I showed what I had and gave a big explanation how I would do it and how I thought stuff should work. And probably once or twice during the lawn tractor meetings, I probably talked about it too. So I will go through and search up the index, and then in our the chat/info section this time, I will put links out to those so you can go watch those. So because maybe Al's going to show a beacon that he found that he may or may not use. So that got us started on this whole discussion. And when we get that far, I'll mention my round addressable strip thing when we get that far. So and then last week I was saying, oh, you can I was saying that Al had made up this custom cable by soldering little header strips, soldering wires on, and put hot glue on when he's done. I said, oh, by the way, you can just go out to like Pololu, and you can get wires that have pre-crimped. You get the jumper wires that have the pre-crimped terminals on them and no housing. So you can buy a bag of 10 of these, and you can get, they've got like 6 or 8 different colors, and you can get lengths from 1 inch up to a normal person would say 1 inch up to 12 inches, but they also have some, I think 60 inches is the longest one they sell. And those you get like 3 at a time instead of 10. But anyway, you can buy the individual wires, and then you can buy the, so you can get a housing. You have to put the housings on the end. This happens to be a 1x6 housing, and you can get, if you buy them on Polo, you can get anywhere from a 1x1 up to a 1x12, or you can get a 2x2 up to like 2x12. But the normal people will say you can buy a kit like this. It has on Amazon, you can get this kit, and it has 1x1 through 1x6, and it's got 2x2 through 2x6, which are, that's typically going to cover most of what you want. And then they also put in some terminals if you want to. They got some male terminals and female terminals if you happen to have a crimper for them and you want to make them up by hand. I find it easier just buy buy them like this pre-crimped, and that way you take this out of the bag and get your housing and plug it in, and you're ready to go. And so it just depends how you want to do that kind of stuff. And I was going to go through the whole thing saying, go to Pololu and go to this landing page. And here's, because it took me, I was looking at, I thought, oh, they don't have this stuff anymore. And I realized, oh, you just gotta learn how to navigate their website. So I was going to do that for this week, and I didn't. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I said, no, I'm not going to pull all that stuff up. So I was thinking what I should do is just fire up a separate video and explain all that stuff. And I just put it out under these shorts and tutorials. And then next week I say, oh, I finally did it. Here, go look at this. And then you can have all my comments on how to make cables. And one of the things that, let me see if I can find that. I think I showed this picture last time. So let me go here and say share screen and go to the screen. And it says that's what's going out. So here's an image from the Pololu website. Say here's an example of what you can do. So this one, see, here's just a single pin housing, and here's a 3-pin. Yeah, so single pin. This is a 3-pin. What would you call it? A 1x3 housing. And here, this looks like a 1x5 or 1x6 housing. You know, so this one has male pins stuck in it. These have female pins stuck in them. And then here's probably a 1x8 housing, and then down here is like a 2x something, and it's got male pins sticking out of it. So you just pick and choose, and if you got a board that already has pins on it, then just find a housing that will, you know, the right number of holes, and then grab the jumper wires that have either male pins or female pins, and you just piece all this stuff together. And if you screw it up and say, oh gee, this one that's 1x3, I really wanted this one over here also in that. So what you can do is you can just lift, it's fairly easy to lift up the tab and pull the wires out of these. So take these wires off and take this wire off and get you a 1x4, and then plug all the wires back in. Then you'll have all 4 of these on the same one. So it's also not like the fact that, like, say, once Al put hot glue on his thing, he's pretty much screwed on that. He can't change the wiring around without cutting that off and starting over. So it's a fairly flexible way to do it if you're willing to, you know, collect these things, or, you know, wait a week or however long it takes for them to show up. But when you buy them, you can buy them basically in bags of. Here, let me turn this off. I say turn this off. They just come in bags of 10. So here's a bunch of. You can also buy them. They say here's an assortment you can buy. This is a bag of 10. These I think are female to female and maybe 6 inches long. And this one I think is like, this one's maybe 3 inches long, and it's these look like female to female. So anyway, you can buy these that I think they come in bags of 10. So you just collect the ones you want. And I like to get more black and red just simply because I always use black and red for my power. So I'm always using those up. I was going to hold up one more thing. What was it? Well, here's another example. This happens to be these are 6 inches. These are 6-inch wires that are green and have this is just the standard ones you buy, you know, when they come with the housings on. So basically the only difference between this and something like this is you could here was bought without the housings. You have to put your own on, and these are just the standard ones they've always had around. That, you know, it's just called a male to male jumper lead, and you can buy those on Amazon, or Pololu sells all this stuff too. It's just the Pololu seems to have, they've gone to the trouble to collect everything and put them all together, so that is a handy thing to have. And I will, as I say, I really want to make a video to explain all this stuff, and maybe I'll get around to it in the next few days. We'll see what happens there. Other than that, I don't think I have any I really haven't accomplished anything. So that's pretty much all I have for this week. And I'm guessing Al wants to go next.
Bob, you good if I go?
Please go.
Okay. What you're seeing is my Miro board, where I try to keep stuff documented a little bit, as mostly for me to remember what the heck I did and why and whatnot. This happens to be a section for my base station because I don't have access to reliable correction data like Jeff does, so I produce my own. Previously up here where the GPS was a NavSpark PX1122, I think, or something like that. And although it worked and it was less expensive, and the GPS that was going to run on the rover also took in wheel tick data to provide odometry sort of corrections when you lost RTK. And that was the vision, but I really struggled with using the NavSpark devices, so I bit the bullet, so to speak, and ended up getting these, let's see, that's still LEDs. That's not what I wanted. Why can't I get to this? Move this thing down. I ended up going with this sort of the low cost option at Ardusimple, where it has the F9P, ZF9P, and quite, wow, was it a big difference to get these in the box and plug them in and try to make them work versus the NavSpark. So I plugged these in, and about, an hour later, I'm getting RTK fix on these things. So, I mean, the underlying technology might not be too different, but the packaging and the support and the software to drive it all really makes a difference. So I now have, my base station configured like this, and on my electronics board, I'll have two of these. Now I could use probably whatever I wanted to over here on the base station to produce these, what is it, 6 or 5 message type, but by producing, these RTCM messages, I'm able to get, fix quick, and it seems to hold RTK relatively well. But your mileage may vary, and I might have different things to say once we get out in the field and testing. So that's where I've been spending time. As Jeff mentioned, let me just finish off on that. So I had run one test, and this is a script that ran that test, and this was the output. And in this, what ended up being about 13 hours before I posted this, 13 or 14 hours, it dropped RTK fix a few times. And yeah, I'm hoping that one of the antennas was about 20 feet away from the house, and I'm hoping that if it were completely out in the open, it might be more steady. But if I run under trees and whatnot, I guess bottom line is I should expect to drop RTK, and I'll probably just stop the tractor and go into manual mode at that point, is my thinking going forward, at least to get back out and do some testing.
And before you move on there, I was just going to point out, those are the boards that I'm using also on my robot. That same Ardusimple board that he just bought. I've got, I can get correction data from the Department of Transportation. So my base station, I don't have to have a base station. I can go out over the internet by either using a cell phone or a computer or whatever, and get correction data and push into my board on my robot. And then I've also got a second one of those boards. So I've got a antenna on the front and an antenna on the back of mine. And you can put it into what they call moving baseline mode. And I can get it'll tell me the heading, whether I'm moving or not. It generates a heading between the front antenna and the back antenna. So that's something else I was doing with mine. And I know it's some of his nav spark boards, nav, whatever that's called. He's got one board that will do that for him. I think all with one board. So that's I just wanted to point out, those are the same ones I'm running, and the same ones I've been running here for years now. And I did some initial testing of this and demos out on the ROS Agriculture stuff. So again, if you pull up the ROS Agriculture index and search for uBlox, or search for the F9P or whatever, or a good thing on the ROS Agriculture stuff, I think I was trying to put a comment on that said either demonstration or no presentation. So if you search for presentation, I think several of mine will show up under that. So that's just something else you can do to go track down more information on this stuff. And a totally unrelated comment, I noticed Al has found a way to post links to chat that are not the URL. It's actually the description. So if somehow he goes to Amazon and says, here, I'll post a link to that. And then when I come back and look after everything's shut down and 2 hours later when I'm looking at stuff in the chat, it says, oh, here's the description of a high power LED, 3 watts, 500 volts, whatever. And there's no URL there. So I don't know what you're clicking on, but I'll tell Bob also keep an eye on the chat. And if he puts up something that doesn't have a URL, it's just
Yep.
easier to catch it before all this happens, because otherwise then I have to take the description, paste it into Amazon and do a search, which brings up 500 pages. So I don't know, which page you're actually looking at. So that's
Okay.
what I did that on one of them last week and was able to get something that's probably close to what he had. But so I don't know what you're clicking on when you do that, but if you click on the actual URL line at the top and say copy that, then that should give you something you can paste in and we'll get back to it. So, don't click on the picture and say copy that, or click on the description and say copy that, because it gives you a description and no URL. So that's just something I thought I'd bring up.
Thanks.
Bob, I'm not very good at subtleties, but I think Jeff is yelling at me.
Oh, wait till I get started.
Yeah. Well, I've got two options. I can either try to track it all down, or I can just say, oh, I'm not going to waste my time. Just ignore it.
How do I get back to chat? Because I think what I need to remember to do is paste as text instead of just a simple.
No, I'm guessing I actually copied the wrong thing, and I don't know what order you're doing the stuff in, but
Well, I am.
so if here's an Amazon page right there, what would you normally click on and say copy?
I just clicked on the URL. I did it on purpose just to show you what.
Okay.
I mean, this big long
And then if you do
hieroglyphics thing.
a right click, one of the options, I think it says paste clean link, and that trims a lot of that crap off there.
Yeah. So is there a URL in that, or just a?
I don't see a URL in that, but there's something funny about it too. Oh, that's the deal. If you hover over it or you click on it while it's still in Zoom, see, they're trying to help us out again. So they're going to put the description up that's underlined as a link, but you don't see the URL. So once you say save this, when you save it, it just saves the text that you see right here. So that's why they're disappearing. So I don't know how to fix that. And there's a similar problem with YouTube. They insist on trying to help you out by again pasting the description, and you don't get the actual URL. So that when I go to do the YouTube stuff, they screw me on that too. So yeah, so I don't know what to do about that, because maybe when you do the copy, you got a different option on that, but I don't know.
I'll look at my Zoom because I get a copy of the chat downloaded on my computer. I'll look at that and see if it's the description or if it's the URL.
Okay. And as I mentioned a few weeks ago that if I don't specifically save the chat, it doesn't automatically save a copy for me. So I got to remember to go out and save it, because one day I realized that, and there was only like one thing on the chat, the chat anyway, so it wasn't that big a deal. But if you get one of these days where somebody puts up 10 or 20 links, and then I expect it to be there, and I go and there's no chat at all or whatever, that's another annoying thing that comes up.
Yeah, I'll
Just
check
more maintenance habit problems.
I'll check my Zoom output and see if I got an actual URL or a URL description. The other final things just to mention briefly on this GPS and base station, there's a couple of links in Slack. One is, I struggle with keeping my documentation up to date, and so I don't know that I'll be able to continue this, but what I've been trying to do is update the README file that's on, the GitHub place where the code is. So this is the description of my base station. And the other thing that was in that was the actual code. And this is code that runs on the tractor that takes the RTCM data and, I lovingly say jams it into the GPS. Now, a couple of things interesting. I'm not using that RTK lib stuff. This is as simple as I could make it, and it creates a connection to the TCP/IP port, and whatever it receives, it's going to write it, and lo and behold, it works. So it's just binary data coming in and binary data being, jammed into the serial port, and the uBlox GPS is able to figure that out, which was fantastic. Now, something that I had to do to get that to work is to use threads instead of a loop. I don't know if there was a timing thing going on or what, but making it a thread instead of having a loop seemed to make it go better. So I've got what I think is a really low complexity, code here. It's 134 lines. I mean, it's not doing everything I need it to do at the moment, but it's just parsing the GGA sentence at the moment. And I've got the next step is take the same approach, feed the RTCM into both of the GPSs, be able to pull off a sentence that has lat lon and status, and do something with all that. Do something with all that data.
So
Yeah,
that's the rover end you were just talking about?
yeah,
As
the code
opposed
I
to-
was showing was on the rover end.
Okay. Were you going to make any mentions on your base station with the new board? The reason I asked was you said something there about you're trimming your data down or something, limiting the data. I just wonder what you were doing there. Because you were saying you're having dropouts and you said, well, you're monkeying with the data. And I just wondered if whatever you're doing is actually throwing stuff out that you weren't expecting it to.
So these messages are coming from, again, trying to make things simple as possible. I kept as much configuration on the GPS as default. And in default mode, it seems to be pushing these things out at 10 hertz. Well, I don't want the network to be, taking all of that data. So I've got a script that's running on the Pi that limits the output down to 1 hertz. That code is let's see, which one is that? That's just a utility. No, it's this one. So this one is putting RTCM data out at 1 hertz. So it comes in at 10 and goes out at 1, simply to try to keep my network traffic down. I could go all the way back to the GPS and reduce the rate, but well, if that was the standard default, then I just left it at that.
So when you're saying reducing it down to 1 hertz, how are you doing that? What is the assumption you're making on, how do you know what to throw out? Let me put it that way.
I've just got a buffer here, and I take the last data off of the buffer and call that broadcast thread.
But how do you, when you take the last data off the buffer, because the problem I ran into, I was trying to do this and push the stuff over a ROS message. And I found out I couldn't find any delimiters in the data that told me, where the data starts and where it ends. I don't remember how I eventually fixed that, but you may actually be causing problems. You were saying you're getting random dropouts. It could be that if you chop it off the wrong spot, it may confuse the thing. So that's, but just as a test sometime, next time you have it running, just take out your thing that trims it down from 10 hertz to 1 hertz and run the whole system and see if it works any better at that point.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the other thing was, you said if you want to reduce it down, you might be better off going into the base station and say only broadcast these RTCM messages at a 1 hertz rate, and then it gets around that whole problem about what's happening there.
Yeah, I could definitely simplify this and take that logic out if I go back
And
upstream.
I was also thinking that I don't know that you have to limit your network data. This data is not very fast that's coming out for the correction data, so you may not have to do that in the first place.
Remember, I have teenagers at home, so I have no idea how how much noise is on my local network. So
Well, I know
I
if I pull up my data monitor right now, my computer is constantly talking like a 3 kHz rate out to I assume it's talking to my router, but
holy
it's
cow.
once I put in this new internet, you can see it just going bang, 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 bang continuously. And so, it's not, well, of course you have to consider, my internet's rated at 600 megabits per second. So, like if you're pushing 5K, you said 5K bytes. I don't know if that's bits or bytes. When I look at the message, RTK Live will put out a message that this how many bits per second or bytes per second or something. And I've never really looked into it. I just know that, compared to all the other modern stuff, that's not very much data to be moving in the first place. And another comment I'll make, I saw somewhere you had some stuff defined. Are you running the 3 constellations, the 3 major ones? Are you running GPS, GLONASS, and Galileo, or do you have the Chinese one thrown in there too?
To be honest, I don't recall. Again, it's default configuration on the F9P, and
Because if you dig through the manual far enough, somewhere it'll say, how fast can I run this thing? And there'll be a page and a chart, and it says something about, I thought it said if you're running 10 constellations, so it'd be all 4 major constellations, satellite constellations, that you can only run at an 8 hertz rate maximum. If you want to run 10 hertz rate, you have to throw out one of the 4. And I thought something, I just looking at your stuff, and I thought it said something about how do they put that? So basically, I think it's a matter of processing power. So they say if you throw out one of your 4 constellations, you can then set it to a 10 hertz rate. And if you're really serious, you can throw out everything but GPS and you can run it at a 20 hertz rate. But somewhere they've got that documented. It's hard to find, and that might be in whatever they call the actual user manual for that module that's on that board, is where it says that kind of stuff. So that's something else. I was playing with it one day. Mine is set at 5 hertz. And from time to time, I've tried setting it up to 8 hertz. And I thought the faster I ran it, it started degrading on me somehow. And I don't know that I've ever, attempted to go through all their hoops and get it to set to 10 hertz. So I don't know if mine would do that or if I had it figured out or not. That's just something else to consider, that, it might be getting marginal as, the way it happens to be configured right now. So I don't know.
yeah, I have to fire up uCenter and dig into the messages again to see what which of those that I was adding. I just was checking offline here to see if I had something saved, but I don't think I do. The other thing quickly on Slack, as Jeff said, I was poking around. In the manufacturing world, we called them an andon light. I don't know where, I think it's a Japanese term, but guess Amazon calls it a signal tower stack. And so I have a radio control unit that I haven't fully utilized, and I've got 4 programmable LEDs on that I could get some status out of, but this would be probably better to have something like this. And Jeff was talking about different ways to do this on the tractor. This is a $25 option, but it comes out, you've got its input is 4 wires and or 5 wires, one for a buzzer. And so you got to put 12 volt into this thing to activate the light or the buzzer. So it would be a little home brewing activity going on to make this work, although the price is nice and the form factor is nice, but Jeff's got other suggestions that are pretty clever too.
On the left there, if you go down about the 4th image, they're showing you what's inside of the thing. And if you zoom in on the one that's showing the LED, that there aren't very many LEDs in that thing. So number one, it may not put out a lot of light to be visible outside. Or if you go down through the specs, they might give you, like we were looking at before, maybe it'll tell you current per LED or watts per LED or something like that. Or they might say lumens. You know, they might give you some indication before you buy the thing and try it. They might give you enough information that you would know if it definitely will not work outside. Then if you got a use for it inside, you could use it. But I know one of the places I was working, a guy had one. He's on top of his office cubicle, and he had a guy who writes some software, so it would check his calendar, and if he was available, it would set it to one color, and if he's on the phone, it set it to another color. So inside of a building, those would work out, be really cute, and then you don't have to actually build it. So that would be a quick way around it. Anymore it gets to the point, if you just go out and buy it off the shelf, you're better off than try to piece all this stuff together. Like I was complaining about building the beacon on my robot, and it took me weeks to get all that glued together and wired together and just figured out in general. So if you can just buy it off the shelf. It's kind of like when I was talking about getting all these jumper wires and all the making up custom cables without having to do a lot of screwing around. It's just things to help you out in the long run are good also. But it just doesn't look like it has enough LEDs in there to really to guarantee it's gonna be visible outside.
And I was going through the comments, and there were some comments about not great for outside. So it's a good point. So for me, the next step is to try to get the 2 GPSs working simultaneously and produce a heading topic that I can use in Pure Pursuit. That's where I'm at.
You got 2 of those uBlox boards?
Well, 3 actually, 1 for base and 2 for the tractor.
Oh, I was assuming you had bought 2, so that way you're gonna have to start shifting stuff around. And I think there's no reason why you can't generate correction data with one brand and then put a different brand on your robot. So I was thinking if you only had 2, you could put the 2 on your robot to give you a heading and then put a different brand as your base station. But what comes right down to it, you're probably best off if they're all the same brand, and then you got less hassles. So that would be a good thing to keep in mind. So I didn't realize you had 3 boards to start with. So
that's it for me.
You still have that picture of my beacon that you keeps randomly popping up here, that kind of ghost picture.
No, it was in the reply.
Well, it's right there on the right. Can you just get that to show up bigger somehow? Okay, there we go. And this was my approach to making a beacon for my robot. That's a die-cast aluminum box. Oh. Okay, so I got my GPS antenna on top, and then it just bolted on top of this box. So that box is a die-cast aluminum box. So it's a heavy-duty type thing. And then I just glued high-power LEDs to the outside of it. So on each side, it's got the white one is an RGB LED, and the black one, or maybe the other way around. Anyway, one of them is an RGB LED that are, I think, was it 3 or 1? Each color is 1 watt inside of that chip. And then the other one is just a single orange LED. And then when I ordered a 1 watt, but they sent me 3 watt LEDs, but it wasn't that big a deal. I think I ended up wiring maybe those in series, and the RGB ones I wired in parallel. So inside the box is a big rat's nest of wires. And then this gray cable right here has the what, four signal wires. Then there's like a ground lead coming off a separate one there. And then it goes down into the box. There's I've got a bunch of little MOSFETs on a board that I bought from Amazon. So I've got 4 of those attached to a board. I'm driving that with a PWM board that you feed an I2C and say, set this channel to this PWM. So I had quite an elaborate thing to make that work. And they are fairly bright. And well, let's see. Should I hold on a second here? So there's what mine looks like with the four LEDs. There's one on each side wired in parallel. So these are the 4 orange ones blinking, and then I can get the RGB to set up different colors depending on what I'm doing. And I just now tried it, and for some reason it won't communicate. We were just talking to it a few minutes ago, and I could flip the switches and change the colors. But right now, that's all I can get is the orange one. But it's got that box set up. Here's the gray cable that goes down below. So down in this box, all the way down here, are the power drivers that run the thing. And I think the I2C to PWM converter is probably inside this box too. So it basically, the wire comes out of the controller by that USB. No, I2C wires come out and go into the box down there and control which LEDs and how much power each one's getting. And that was a lot of work. And then the other thing we were talking about was you could just take an addressable LED strip and wrap it around something round. Or yeah, I suppose you could put it on something square like this if you wanted to. But I was thinking, take a hole saw, you get a piece of plywood and just cut a piece of wood that's maybe, I don't know, 3 inches in diameter, and wrap an addressable LED strip around it and glue those on. And so now you got, like 10 or 20 LEDs pointed out, and you got a single wire to control the thing. So you just put 5 volts on it and give it a control signal and basically do the same thing. And that would be much easier than the weeks I spent trying to build this thing. and then I've got the thing on ROS Agriculture. I talked about building this and got some stories behind it and various pictures. So I'll go through the index and try to pull those up. So you can go watch that stuff if you want to see how I built this thing. But it just seems like the addressable LED strips have changed the world enough. You can do, all kinds of clever things with those now. So that's something that I was telling Al, maybe I can convince Al into making one of these so we don't have to, so I don't have to make one. But I want to replace this one with the, assuming I can get one that's bright enough outside. I'll have to check my LED strips and see if that will work. So that's just something else we were talking about before the meeting started here was, Al was looking at that new column thing, and this is what I did on mine. And I was just watching another clever video. Maybe I'll post that, where there has a kind of a field competition where they had a little 4-wheel drive robot driving around, and it had some kind of a flashing beacon like this, and theirs was very bright, and you could see it was changing different colors as they drive up and down the field, and they get to the end and make a loop to turn around. It would turn different colors, and then when their timer went off and it had to stop, then it would change to some other color. So that was interesting to see somebody else doing that kind of stuff. And if this was working right, I could flip these switches. I either get, the orange means it's in manual mode, so you can drive around with the joysticks. If I flip my manual auto switch on the remote, then that thing starts flashing blue, which means it's accepting ROS input commands. And if I hit the E-stop, then it changes to red and it's flashing at twice the rate. So I know that I hit the E-stop switch. So you can just pick different combinations. And if I can find those videos on ROS Agriculture, I went at great lengths on flashing codes and flashing rates and different colors and what color should mean what. So as I say, I'll try to find those links and post that so you can go watch those if you have an interest in that kind of stuff. So I think that's all I wanted to say about that, I guess. Oh, except for the fact I did build that little just LED strip on the status strip on the back. So it's got a proto board and an Arduino Nano and a 8 LED addressable strip on that. So I just have a USB cable that plugs into the laptop. So I just got a command that it's like a text-based command. If I just say, take this list of numbers. So there's 8 columns, maybe comma separated, and each column you give it a number for a color. So I have probably I think it's like 0 through 15 or something, which just tells it basically, you know, how which colors you want to come out of the thing. And that's handy because you can program to do anything you want. So then I just wrote a ROS node that as it runs, it goes out, checks my GPS status, my IMU status. I've actually had 2 GPSs. So you pick something you want to see, and then you pick an LED on the strip and say, okay, so position number 1, I want to be the first GPS RTK status. And then number 2 will be the second GPS RTK status, and then another one might be, I think that I picked the 2 on the other end and said that's my 2 IMUs that are on there. And it just simply, you just pick and choose what you want it to do, and then that, you know, so this node you write will subscribe to whatever you want, and you say check these ranges, and if so, then set LED 3 to red or set it to green or whatever. And that's a handy thing to have too. And if I could easily get this out, be best if I could take it outside and then check those LED strips. Because I was thinking you can see them while it's on, but you can't really distinguish the color. So I'm just wondering if, you know, making this beacon, if that's going to do it, if it's going to be bright enough to see outside. And if not, I guess there's no point doing it, but maybe you could actually shade it underneath of something. But anyway, so I just wanted to point out that that's something I've done, and I'll try to remember to put the stuff out in the description so you can go watch this extra stuff if you choose to do so. So I think that's all I have. Al, did you have any more?
No, I'm good. But when you turn recording off, we can talk about this chat and saving the URLs. It seems to
Okay.
be.
Yeah. Okay. So Bob, do you have stuff to talk about?
Made some progress with Al's nomachine, and I posted that on Slack. I'm able to edit the Raspberry Pi 5 from my iPad or from my laptop. And at the same time, I can see everything going on because I mirrored the iPad to our Roku television in the living room. So next I want to experiment with using the iPhone. And let's see, then that was using, and then I was able to use Cheese to be able to see a video out of the camera on all the screens. It's not OpenCV, but it was a nice first test. Next thing I wanted to do was start moving the servos around, and I was banging my head on the old way of doing it with GPIO. I couldn't understand what I was doing wrong. And then I found something on the Raspberry Pi forum, and the Raspberry 5 has new hardware and software for GPIO. And it requires, I guess, your Python has to have an environment. So that's kind of a new territory for me. It sounds like it's Python's answer to Docker. Anyway, excuse me. Anyway, you have to set up an environment to make all this work. And that's what I'm reading now is, you know, what's the environment? Why is it important? And how do you do it? But I'm kind of frustrated that I'm using Pi 3 or Python 3 in the terminal, but you know, I'd rather have some kind of a visual Python 3 like Tomy was. I don't know if that'll work for 3 in Linux or not. So that's what I'll be looking at. The other thing I did was I went on GitHub and started searching for sample servo programs. And I'm starting to get more familiar with that. And I downloaded a real simple one, just as raw code into a text file. So if I can get this, the new GPIO working, then I'll import some of those programs and experiment with them. I got tired of bending over the robot to play with the Pi and all that other stuff. So I took everything off, took the electronics off that, mounted on a small board that I can have on my table. And I've got all the, I'm using the wall warts for power. I'll give you, I'll move the iPad over so you can see what's going on. And let's see. I hate this. Anyway, I've got the Pi hooked up with a strip next to it in the camera. And I've got the camera plugged into the strip. I took an old wall wart that put out about 7 milliamp or 700 milliamps, and I'm powering the servos with that through the strip. And then I want to see how much. I don't have any information on this on the servos, so I thought if I went with a strip, I could somehow see how much current is doing, so I don't burn out the Raspberry Pi 5. That's about it right now. So the next thing is to get a better handle on the Python so-called environments and get the new version of GPIO working so I can understand it. But that's about where I'm at.
Bob, I'm trying to use nomachine and getting a graphic user interface on a Raspberry Pi 3. I, with about 80% confidence, am saying I was never able to get the GUI to work. I think it has to do with the power of the Raspberry 3 is just
Oh,
a
okay.
little bit limited on the GUI.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if how much I can do, if it'll cut out, or because I didn't do anything real active, just called up cheese and that started up, but I haven't done any real fast computing on it. There's another feature with the Raspberry Pi 5 GPIO. I guess you have to address the chip for the PIO and then the addresses and all that stuff within it. But it's possible to control that over the internet. So you can remote control the GPIO pins. But then, like my wife said, well, what could possibly go wrong with that?
Yeah, I think you should watch War of the Worlds again with what was that, Stargate or something?
Oh, yeah. Oh. And then I'm putting my Pi up on standoff so I can reach the little card a lot easier. And I've noticed with that board sitting up high, I get a lot of play in the cables. So now I want to come up with a way of supporting those cables up. And once I get a support, I'll use some of these things. I don't know if you can see them. I took the nail out and I'm using some number 4 screws like this. So I drill into my plywood or my wood with a drill bit that's slightly smaller than outside diameter, and they screw in real nice. So I'm hoping that'll hold down the cables and make everything rock solid. But when you go to Home Depot, they don't have number 4s, they got number 6s. And number 6 is too big to go into the Pi unless if you very carefully ream out the hole a little more. So I'm taking a drill bit by hand and trying to open up that hole just a hair more. So I don't, gotta be careful I don't break the board.
How does that clamp work on your Raspberry Pi?
I have to make a special piece of wood to go underneath and support the cables and the plugins. So the board is on 4 standoffs, but there's a lot of cord sticking out.
Yeah.
Have to custom make some kind of a spacer out of wood or something solid and put it underneath the cables that are going into the Pi.
Oh, so when you're talking about putting screws to the Raspberry Pi, you mean just hold the Raspberry Pi down? They have nothing to do with screws through the clamp? Or is there?
Right. It's 2 different things. I've got the Raspberry Pi up on a standoffs, and I've got 3 of the screws were small enough to go through, and I could go right into the wood to hold it, but I was a screw short. And I'm going to have to open up that one hole so it'll accept a number 6, and then screw that into the board. So that's just the board itself. But then I notice all the cables flopping around. So now I want to support that and then anchor those down with this little blue Ethernet clamp.
Okay. Oh, that somehow you're putting that clamp onto the Raspberry Pi, and like, well, but your cables are like 2 inches away, hanging off the side. So
Yeah, so
I
I want to
wasn't.
support them. Yep.
Yeah, I had that confused on what you're trying to do there.
Yeah. So I want to try and keep everything on that little piece of wood that I made, because then that will be a module that just slides right into the robot platform. But I can
Okay.
still use my desk.
So in your collection of parts, do you have any small like Arduino type boards that you've got, or
I've got
not
a
having that?
number of sensors and stuff. Let me see. Yeah. Got this one, and I've got a number of step downs.
Well, what's the actual Arduino type board that's in that? Is it a real like an Arduino Uno or something? Or?
No, I don't have any Arduino stuff. Just the regular. Well, here's that Adafruit board,
Yeah.
and
Well, my point was, I find it handy to hook, say, like an Arduino up to your Raspberry Pi, and not try to get the Raspberry Pi to do all kinds of fancy things with the GPIO. Now, as these things have evolved, I haven't played with the GPIO lately on, say, like a Raspberry Pi 5. But back in the old days, I just always found it easier to plug it in Arduino, and then you've got all the whole world of Arduino code to run servos and whatever you want to do with it, and just hook the 2 together with a USB cable. So now from your Raspberry Pi, you write a program, just sends commands down to that board and says, set servo number 3 to position 25, and let it do it for you. So
also run a Python program on the Pi to talk.
Python or whatever you want. Just simply, you're going to send commands down to it and let it do all this fancy timing and everything that that's basically what the little boards are, designed to do. So
yeah, I mean, looking at it, they aren't that expensive either.
So I just thought if you had something laying around, I'd suggest a couple things to try, but if you don't have anything, then I guess that's.
I've got a Pi 3, but let's see how that goes. I might look after that, but first I want to get a good understanding of the Python environments going in and out.
Yeah.
You may have said it, Bob, but what are you trying to drive on the GPIO pin from
the servos on the camera for a pan and tilt.
Got it. Well, on the number 4 screw, I put two links, one just for a number 4 screw from McMaster Car. I don't know if you know that supplier, but they're you can find all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
Now you got to add, I don't know, $7 or $8 in shipping. So you'll see a package of number 4 screws 1/2 inch long, or I think what they were, $6 or $7.
Yeah.
And if you're going to order, I would get some number 2s as well, because sometimes you're messing around with this stuff and the holes are so small that a number 4 can't fit through it.
That's right. Might look into that. Thank you.
As far as the holes in your Raspberry Pi, do I have one laying here? I think they probably have like an area around it. Here's Raspberry Pi. This is an old one, but well, this particular one, it just simply straight holes through the board. So there's no. I was thinking the newer ones had like a metal pad around the thing.
You
Oh.
said Raspberry, but that's a Arduino.
Oh, that's right. So I don't have one convenient here, but the point is, if you start drilling into a multi-layer printed circuit board, you know, they may have traces close enough to the
Yeah.
to that hole that you start drilling, you may screw up the board by doing that.
Yeah. I think I'll keep looking for the right screws.
Okay, well, hold on a second here. So I grabbed the only Raspberry Pi that I'm sure I knew where it was, and unfortunately, I've got this big cooler bolted on top, so I can't see the pads. And at the bottom, it's got a plastic plate bolted to the pads, and I really can't tell. Maybe the easiest way would be go out to say Amazon and look up Raspberry Pi and get a picture of it, and we can do it that way. And let me put it on pause again. Okay, I'm back. Let me try to share my screen here. Come on. I guess you have to double click that. It says that's what's going on. So if we here's a Raspberry Pi 5. If we look at the mounting holes, it does look like there's a hole and then a here, can I get this permanent? There we go. Well, anyway, it looks like there's a hole there. It looks like that whole area around that's kind of a clear stuff that's with no silk screen on it. I assume that's all open PC boards. So I would think you could probably, let me do this. Open a new tab. Okay. And do one of these. Okay, there we can see it.
Yeah.
And if we look at it, so I don't know what that is right there. That's probably just crap on that was laying on there when they took the picture. But I'm guessing you probably could, if you're going to take a minimum of stuff out. I wonder if you look at that, if it's got a copper ring inside of there, which I don't think is really needed. But I would say you could probably drill that out without destroying it. But that's so it's better information than just guessing at it like we were doing before. So you may be able to. Anything else we need to look at? Well, oh, right there, that shows us right there. That there's not a copper ring inside of that, so it does look like just bare printed circuit board.
Yep.
Inside the hole there. So probably you could probably get away with doing that. Would be my thought.
Yeah.
And I think I have done that in the past on the older boards, but I don't know, you know, how the new boards compare to the old boards. Because I ran into the same problem one time. I was trying to get screws to go through, and the holes are just didn't happen to be the right size for what I was trying to do. So there's another example of holes. Now that hole looks funny, but it's probably because it's laying on something black, and they didn't when they yeah because the other hole looks black underneath too. So somehow it was laying on something black, and they magically photographically cut this out. So that's, but it still looks like, you know, the inside of the hole there looks like there's no copper in it. And I'm guessing that whole, you know, kind of light colored area is probably just open copper or open board with no traces or anything inside of it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that's a better indication that it might work. And so, and the other point is just put 3 screws in it too. That'd be another option if you only have 3 right now, not a 4th one. So that,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it matters which of the 3 you use. This one by your connector, you might want that one held down.
Does that come with a memory card?
Let me see. Visit via the Raspberry Pi store. It doesn't really seem to, normally they just have it laying on the table here next to it. So I'm going to guess no. Well, there it shows a card plugged in, but so let's see about this item.
No, doesn't look like it does.
Sometimes it'll say what's included in this package. But here's the point where I was saying that, just because we post something here, don't immediately go out and buy it, because 129 I would say is too much. Unless is this the 16 gigabyte card? That might make a difference.
It's a 16 gigabyte version. $100 at Micro Center.
Yeah, because the 16 gigabyte is more, but and Micro Center, it might be the special walk-in price where they give you a lower price on it if you show up at the store to get it. But yeah, you just have to shop around at all this stuff, because if somebody pulls this up as the first thing we saw and says, "Oh, it's $129, I'll buy that." Well,
Yeah.
maybe you don't have to pay that much for it. So
That's
anyway,
that's for the 16. I think I have an 8.
yeah. I think I was going to say what I paid for mine. It turns out I don't have one. I got a Raspberry Pi 4, and it was about the same price. I think that always amazes me. They come out with something much better and much newer, and it's the same price as the old stuff. That always amazed me that they did that. But so anyway, I think probably tells us enough there that we needed to know. So, but yeah, that's the first thing I do. Is just put 3 screws in, and you basically something to keep them sliding around. And
Yeah.
if you get it bolted down too solidly, then you move the cables, you're going to break something. So that's yet another problem with that. I guess I can't solve anything by, telling you where to put screws in, but that's my thoughts on that stuff.
Okay.
So you got anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
So in the future, you might want to consider getting like an Arduino board or a Teensy board or something, and you can get some pretty cheap Arduino boards. Now, if you want to hook up a lot of stuff to it, you can get an Arduino Mega, and it's got like 100 IO pins or something. But they're also the price jumps from like $3 up to like $25 to get one of those, and you just have to decide if that's what you want or not. So,
Yeah.
and you don't have to get it immediately. Go play with your GPIO and see what you can make it do. And another option is that little PWM board you just held up. I'm sure somebody will give you an example to run that off from your Raspberry Pi. So
Yeah.
they'll say, hook up your I2C pin and plug your servos into that PWM board. So that might be that's probably another valid option to do also, without putting an extra microcontroller on there.
Sure.
So that's I guess that's all I have to say right now. Any other requests before we stop recording?
All set.